Hey everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations. So this video, I am going to be continuing on the series that is, why is that a stellium in Aquarius so important for us right now? And here I'm going to be breaking down the Mars-Pluto conjunction that recently just happened. And I want to be going into some details around how we can orientate ourselves towards this transit and what can we expect from it? Okay. Again, the context of this stellium in Aquarius is important because it impacts so many other evolutionary planetary alignments that are taking place right now. So I've also, for those of you that are just watching this video and haven't seen the Pluto and the stellium in Aquarius video, I encourage you to go watch that as well. And I'll leave a link in the description and also in the comment section, okay? As part of a playlist. And I've got other videos coming out as well to help us really connect with these planetary alignments and understand the significance of them, okay? What's also important is that if you have your astrology chart, notice where these transits are landing in your personal astrology chart. Because one of the best ways to access and begin to embed yourself in the relationship between the cosmos and your life is to use the mirror, the tool, the natal chart that you have, to see where these planetary alignments are happening. So for me, the stellium in Aquarius is landing in my first house, although Pluto and Mars conjunction was actually happening in my 12th, right? But the stellium is kind of taking into my first house over here, and I can really feel not only the energy of that first house presence, but I can feel what is wanting to emerge within my consciousness at this stage. And so I want to try to envision that for you too. So it's important that you can get your astrology charts and look where these transits are happening, and even share it in the comment section. You know, share with other people, where are your planetary alignments landing with the stellium? Because in your kind of overall holistic chart, these planetary alignments, particularly the Mars-Pluto conjunction, is going to signify where you are at the leading edge of your evolution, right? Personally. So for me, this conjunction happening just on the cusp of my 12th, or like my first house energy. It's in my 12th house, but it's just like round the cusp there, right? That signature for me signifies something deep when it comes to what I'm trying to resolve in this lifetime. Part of my astrology is I've got Mars and Venus, which are squaring my planetary nodes in my chart, right? My lunar nodes, they're being squared by this. So I'm trying to resolve that skip step in my life. So this new phase, Pluto, Mars conjunction, and then eventually Venus, is definitely speaking to the next step in the resolution for me regarding my skip steps. So when you want to look at these alignments, you want to be seeing in terms of what is trying to be resolved within your life. You may have the stellium happening in your 7th house, and relationships have always been something that you're coming out to figure out, essentially. You may have this in your 10th house of your career or life. You may have this happening in your 4th house, you know, of your emotional relationship to yourself. So all over, there's going to be these transits affecting us in a deep way. So that's another dimension that I encourage you to sort of bring in. Yeah, okay. All right, so Mars-Pluto conjunction, and we are looking at the leading edge of our evolution, okay? And this is what the conjunction looks like in the sky. We've got Mars, Pluto, they're sitting in Aquarius, and then trailing behind a little bit is Venus in Capricorn, and then you have the square to Jupiter in the chart as well. Now, what I thought was really fascinating was that when Mars-Pluto conjuncted, the moon was actually in Aries. The moon transiting Aries highlights the significance of the Aries archetype, considering the north nodes there plus Chiron. And Mars is the planetary ruler of the Aries archetype. So not only is Mars in a new phase to Pluto, but the moon also transits the Aries archetype, the Aries constellation, or Aries segment of the sky from a tropical perspective. And it's like, hey, by the way, this is really important. Pay attention here. Okay. So I just thought that was a beautiful synchronicity in the orchestra that is the cosmos, and to really see and feel and embrace the kind of, as I said, the agency that is existing in the cosmos itself. We've kind of divorced ourselves from that, and our astrology reflects our divorce from the cosmos, in the sense that we are intellectually aware of our transits, but we tend to not connect with what is sort of emerging within our emotional landscape, within our emotional field, and forming a relationship to that. So this is an important next step in our evolution when it comes to using astrology, is to actually see how there is a consistent relationship and interplay between the cosmos and your emotional journey here on Earth. So there again, kind of just coming back to this conjunction over here, that's what it looks like in the sky at the moment. Now, why is it called the leading edge of our evolution? And what is so significant about a conjunction? Okay. And that is why I think that sort of answering these questions using this roadmap today is the best form of action when it comes to digesting this material. So I'm going to try to get through this in a way that really helps us come into context and conversation with these planetary energies that are alive with us right now. And that's actually a really important point. Think about it, right? What does it mean to be coming into a conversation with the transits that you are having in your life right now? Okay. What is a conversation, right? A dialogue between two entities. And it is an exchange of information that affords the potential for deep awareness. So your relationship to the transit of the fourth house stellium, as an example, or in my case, the stellium of the first and 12th house, understanding and forming a relationship to what that could mean to me and how that's playing out in my life, holds the potential for an awakening experience. And particularly something that exists in a more metaphysical reality, like our like our soul. It's just a Mercury moment there where you're like serious, and then Mercury comes along and says, let's lighten it up a little bit. And then I say the word coal, right? And we giggle for a moment over there, and we kind of come back to this balance between seriousness and creativity and laughing at ourselves in the context of our human existence. And I suppose that's a kind of an Aquarius moment over there, because it just suddenly changed the pattern. So yeah. So let me come back to this Mars-Pluto evolution, right? As evolution. The Mars-Pluto cycle is the relationship between the unconscious drives that we have in our DNA and in our instincts. We're naturally drawn towards realities that oftentimes is very difficult to explain, but we just go, yeah, I just instinctually needed to go there. I instinctually was attracted to this. And then when you experience the nature of the attraction and the attachment to the thing that you attach to or that you are in relationship with, you start to experience a deeper awakening of your consciousness of that reality. And so Mars-Pluto is the conscious-unconscious relationship between the drive that is deeply primordial Pluto and the ego's capacity to act on that instinct that affords the relationship and attachment. So when looking at Mars-Pluto as a system, we are looking at how do we come into natural communion and conversation with our deeper desires and instincts, and what we learn about that attachment through the continuous choice making and actioning of that. So Mars-Pluto in Aquarius speaks to a deep drive in the collective to begin aligning with Plutonian and Aquarius types of experiences. And that Mars that sits there right on the top says, all right, let's go, right? Let's go. This is now the new evolutionary trajectory. Mars prior, right, before this conjunction, had a conjunction to Pluto when Pluto was in Capricorn. And so the previous evolutionary cycle was a culmination of Pluto in Capricorn themes, right? Now that we're in this Pluto and Aquarius theme, it's now a synthesis between Pluto and what it's wanting to expose within the social stratosphere of our humanness, and Mars saying, this is now where this new evolutionary path is taking us. Now we're moving in this direction. We're not going there anymore. We're going here. Okay? So there is a deep synthesis between the emergent Plutonian subconscious drive to begin merging with and as osmosing, using those words consistently, with Aquarian type of experiences, and then Mars at the top of it saying, we're ready now. And it's deeply fresh. This is not something that we're like, oh, this is what it is. It's like, no, we'll just experience progressive random outbursts of Pluto Mars planetary alignments. So an example would be when Pluto and Mars actually made a conjunction Tuesday here in Sweden. I don't know if you know it, if you knew, but I would go check it out. There are many other examples of these eruptions. But in Sweden, in a city called Gothenburg, there is a theme park that's pretty famous, and they had built this like new, fancy, established structure that was going to be a part of this theme park. That was a major attraction. It was like they constructed this, they put tons and tons and tons of money into it. I even went there to go, and I walked past this construction place, and it was just enormous. And when Mars Pluto actually made that conjunction, this whole entire thing exploded in flames. Like it just blew up. And luckily, nobody was in there in terms of it was open. It was actually closed still. But think of the significant impact of that event, not only for that theme park as a business, because nobody wants to go there now, because it's like, this place is dangerous. So that whole entire landscape of that business structure, the people that are employed in that business structure, the people that invested in that business structure, the hotels that are around there, the entire landscape of this place that once was and afforded some form of attachment to people's entertainment or meaning or family experiences, etc., as well as the jobs and families that people are dependent on with the people that are working there, literally have gone up in smoke. And so now you're dealing with the aftermath of this eruption. That's something that Mars-Pluto aspects can bring to our emotional landscape, is there is something that has radically changed the landscape, and it's in Aquarius, so it just happened. And now we're left with picking up the pieces for this process. So this is a dynamic that can absolutely play out, and what you will see is eruptions of emotional patterns that are sort of vulnerable, right? The vulnerability in the emotional landscape, this Mars energy can push it up to the surface and it can erupt. And then what happens is that we're left with the scarring of what has erupted. So it's a pretty powerful transit in the sense that it creates tremendous impact. Now, in the context of new phase conjunction, and I think I'll just kind of circle back to the evolutionary intention, you've got to know that now, from now onwards, the evolutionary path for all of the people that are associated and involved in that scenario have to adapt. A level of adaptation needs to take place here in order for things to be repaired or restored. But it can never be repaired or restored in the same way that the infrastructure was before. And that is what the baseline of Mars-Pluto aspects are about, that there is a kind of breaking apart of the landscape and the structuring of that emotional landscape that can never be put back to the same way. And there will always be a somatic memory of the tragedy of that experience itself, and it sits within our subconscious. And so all of us have had experiences like this theme park amusement explosion dynamic, where an emotional eruption has altered the landscape of the relationship that you have to people around you, past relationship, mother dynamic, whatever that is, you inserted for yourself. And you're left with the eruption of that. So, this is as I said, it's a big thing, and it changes things. And there is a necessary enforcement of new evolutionary structures to be put in place and new pathways to be developed in a sense. Okay. So what is a new phase conjunction? And if we come back to the screen over here, well, actually, let's do this over here. The new phase conjunction from an evolutionary astrology perspective simply suggests and means that, just like with the new moon, there is the seeds of a new pattern, so something fresh, something that hasn't occurred before, that has been embedded into the soil, as it were. And there is now a potential growth pattern of that seed. So with Mars Pluto in Aquarius and this conjunction, we see the setting of a new evolutionary path that will eventually become fully bloomed into our consciousness over the next 1.5 to 2 years. So the impact of this transit and its pattern will present and consistently be salient in our emotional landscaping in terms of the way that we experience the world, the way that we will see the world experienced to us, how governmental structures will respond to things in the world. There will be a deep, sudden, and unpredictable explosion of emotional dynamics that will just repressed feelings. Things that have been buried will emerge into the surface and will spill over. And the effect of that is new adaptations, new ways of responding to the landscape that it is right now, while at the same time also dealing with the aftermath of the eruption. So it's pretty potent, but it's also pretty volatile at the same time. And so there's this new evolutionary pattern that's emerging. And with, again, the moon crossing over Chiron and the North Node in Aries, we can see that there is a new pattern, right? That's the kind of thing. Something new can come out of this. That's the thing I want to hold on to here. So repressed emotions, reactions versus response, and then danger. Okay? Repressed emotions, reactions versus response, and danger. So as you've sort of started to gather, when I'm talking about this event that happened at this theme park here in Sweden, as one example, the thing that we're actually paying attention to is pressure that has reached a point where it can no longer be held. And so therefore, there is a vulnerability that exists in this concealment. And that vulnerability allows for an eruption to take place. And therefore, things that have not been dealt with emerge to the surface. So in this case, that fire emerged. And if there is a deeply thorough forensic investigation of that, why that was the case, which I'm sure there will be, you will find that there was something that was at fault, right? And that fault was revealed through the vulnerability. So Mars Pluto in Aquarius is pushing to the surface the vulnerability and where the pre-existing structures of our social landscapes have been built upon. So what it's really saying is that at a collective level, we will begin to become aware of where the pre-existing structures that are no longer solid for us in our societies will begin to erupt. Where we've patched things over or not dealt with things, or things that have been not addressed in terms of our society, will now start to seep through the surface and start to crack. And eventually at some point there will be like pockets of volcanic explosions taking place. That is good because it means that, evolutionary speaking, there is a need to adapt to the consequences of the emergent explosions. In other words, where there are these vulnerabilities that are outdated, not structured in a way that supports the pressure of what it means for a society to gel together, they will start to crack. And then what will emerge out of it is this energy. And then we will need to interact with it and find adaptation in ways so that we can move beyond it or through it, whatever that is. So there's a lot of potency there. A lot of repressed potential will just emerge. Because it's a new phase conjunction, we don't actually know fully what this is about. We just know that we're dealing with the aftermath of it. It's only through reflection back and an active desire to want to understand it will we fully become aware of the repressed emotions that are existing beneath the surface. And what this means is that for all of us, we're going to be more inflamed at an emotional level around the things that we haven't dealt with within ourselves. And we're going to be more likely to react to dynamics that are stimulating the inflaming parts of our emotional reality. And this is always the case with Mars-Pluto aspects. But when it comes to Mars-Pluto in Aquarius, this is going to erupt in a way where it's unpredictable, right? You may be just going along your way, and then the next minute, there is an event that takes place that creates an awakening experience within yourself, and there's an inflamed reaction, and you're like, whoa, I'm possessed by this deep emotional turmoil. And that might mean that you react instead of responding, which is a very profound kind of difference. There's a difference in reaction versus response. Most of the time we'll react because it's maybe too powerful for us to rein in and respond to. But ultimately, there is a dynamic over the next couple of months and probably over the next week, because this conjunction will be very intense, where you're slightly more reactive, whereas there is a deep need to recall yourself from the need to react and, in a sense, kind of interject where that emotional inflamedness is present and not allow it to spill over beyond you, which for some of you and for most of you, you'll probably be able to do. But in terms of the collective, there might be too much of vulnerabilities and emotional displacement. And so that means that you will see it. And I have seen a few sort of clips already on the internet of eruptions that are taking place with regards to human interactions that have been repressed. We know currently in the world right now, there is a tremendous amount of conflict emotionally, and it's erupting in nation states getting into war with each other. And there will be an exposure of where these vulnerabilities lie within these patterns. So for those of you that are sort of, deeply merged with the need for truth to come out as a way to expose corruption, this is a time where those types of planetary systems can activate that. But at the same time, there can also be a natural reaction to want to repress it straight away. And with Aquarius, I don't think that that's possible. So it's going to like, oh, you haven't dealt with it, eruption. Oh, you haven't dealt with it, eruption. Oh, you haven't dealt with it, eruption. Okay, you've dealt with it, less inflamedness, less eruption, adaptation, repair, right? So you can see how that cycle will play out, right? It's eruption, eruption, eruption. Okay, I need to do something about this. This is creating destruction in my life. Adaptation. Okay, inflamedness, better ways of handling it, better repair. So that's what I foresee over the next 2 years is a constant cycle. And so for all of us at a deeply individual level, we do get the opportunity to experience new emotional responses and develop new forms in relation to the potential that Mars-Pluto is presenting to us over the next 2 years, which is that if we observe patterns within ourselves that are likely to get inflamed, and then we, as best as possible, try to address the underlying emotional displacement that comes with it, then we're going to find that we're less likely to have the reactions and more of the responses. These responses allow us to subdue or reduce the inflammation of the emotional tension or pain that is being felt in the emotional body. This affords us what the evolutionary intention is with this planetary system, which is this is a time where we get to break free completely from the emotional patterns that we have been carrying for a very long time in our collective consciousness. And it's potent and it's here and it's now, and we get the opportunity to tap into it. So that is, in my eyes, the sort of deep framework of what I consider this Mars Pluto to be and the potential from it. Okay. So let me know in the comment section how this is playing out for you within your chart. How are you learning to see where this planetary alignment's happening and how that's inflaming your own personal relationship to the things that have happened in your life, and then how you can choose, take a step back. Okay, the cycle is happening. Address the emotional dynamic, see the core sort of pattern that's causing it, and then potentially decentralize yourself from that core pattern and move beyond where that wound or that vulnerability is consistently inflaming you and your emotional awareness, that's then influencing your perception of reality, and becoming more grounded in that context. Okay, cool. So there is a link in the description for the video on the Aquarius, the stellium in Aquarius. There's also a link in the description for you to sign up for the Evolutionary Astrology Immersion that's going to be coming out super soon. And what I'm going to be doing is giving information on what it's, when it's coming out, why we're doing it. So if you're interested in learning astrology in a way that's completely different, Mars-Pluto conjunction, than in a traditional sense, and you want to be able to live the archetypes and learn how to experience your astrology chart in a lived way, so that you're experiencing the consciousness of your soul in a embodied experience versus the detached sense of like, oh, I have this planet, I have this planet, I have this planet, but what does it mean? So if you want to answer that question, well, what does it mean? Then you have to learn it in an immersive way and become alive to the agency of the cosmos. So I'm going to leave a link in the description for you to put your name in the waitlist for that, and you'll get some information over the time of what that actually is about and when we'll be opening up that program. Okay. Alrighty. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.